single courtroom, a relentless camera tracking every micro-expression, and a television landscape that stood completely unprepared for the earthquake about to hit it. In the mid-90s, before streaming services turned serialized obsession into a nightly habit, television viewers lived in a comfortable world of self-contained mysteries where every crime was neatly packaged, prosecuted, and solved within a strict 60-minute window. But then came a legal drama so radically ambitious, so agonizingly meticulous, and so psychologically heavy that it broke the traditional rules of network broadcasting. This was Murder One. Created by Steven Bochco, a visionary who loved pushing television to its absolute breaking point, the series dared to ask a dangerous question. What if an entire television season followed just one single, massively complex murder trial day by excruciating legal day? Released in 1995, Murder One did not just tell a story about crime and punishment. It became a cultural phenomenon that exposed the ruthless machinery of the legal system, the media circus surrounding high-profile trials, and the crushing personal cost borne by those trapped inside the spotlight. Anchored by a brilliant, understated performance at its center, the show captured the tense, suffocating atmosphere of elite litigation where a single misplaced document or a flawed witness could spell total ruin. Yet, behind the polished courtroom veneer lay a chaotic, high-pressure war zone of frantic rewrites, executive panic, and creative gambles that almost tore the production apart. Today, we are opening the vault to explore 15 shocking, little-known facts about Murder One. We will uncover the terrifying network gamble that nearly killed the project before it aired, the intense legal realism that forced actors to sweat through real jurisprudence, the exhaustion behind the scenes, and the lasting legacy that quietly laid the blueprint for modern prestige television. Before we take our seats in the gallery, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Yesterframe HQ community as we step back into television history. Number 1. The impossible network gamble that terrified executives. Long before a single camera rolled on the set of Murder One, the core concept was viewed by major network gatekeepers as a commercial suicide mission. The creative team pitched a radical narrative structure where one single criminal case would stretch across 23 grueling episodes, refusing to offer viewers any easy answers or quick weekly resolutions. Studio executives panicked, arguing that modern audiences possessed zero patience for a slow-burn legal puzzle and would abandon the channel after week 2. The prevailing wisdom of mid-90s television demanded instant gratification, neat episodic loops, and clear-cut heroes fighting obvious villains. But the creators stood their ground, driven by the belief that viewers were hungry for novelistic depth and moral ambiguity. When the network finally took the leap, that stubborn vision permanently shattered conventional wisdom, proving that serialized storytelling could command a mass audience. And just like that, the rulebook for dramatic television was thrown out the window. Number 2, the unconventional leading man who panic-stricken the studio. When casting the central figure of Ted Hoffman, a brilliant, unflappable defense attorney who would anchor the entire narrative weight of the series, television conventions dictated hiring a proven, recognizable network star with built-in audience appeal. Instead, the production team made the radically bold choice to cast Daniel Benzali, a stage actor with virtually zero leading television experience. Network bosses were reportedly terrified, fearing that an unknown face with a severe look and an unyielding demeanor would fail to connect with viewers accustomed to traditional television glamour. Studio executives even pushed behind the scenes to find a safer, more charismatic alternative who could guarantee rating stability. Yet the creators refused to compromise. Benzali brought a quiet, intimidating gravitas, a razor-sharp cadence, and an aura of intense intellectual combat that completely redefined the archetype of the television lawyer. His signature glasses and unflinching stare became legendary, proving once and for all that raw, uncompromising presence will always outweigh superficial celebrity power. Number 3, the uncompromising obsession with real legal precision. For decades, television courtrooms relied on theatrical shouting matches, dramatic last-second confessions, and wildly unrealistic legal maneuvers designed strictly for emotional impact. Murder One sought to dismantle that Hollywood illusion by hiring veteran defense attorneys and former prosecutors to act as relentless technical advisors on every single script. The actors were subjected to rigorous legal boot camps, forced to master dense, authentic courtroom jargon, complex evidentiary rules, and the subtle psychological chess match of actual trials. Every objection raised, every motion filed, and every cross-examination executed was subjected to brutal scrutiny to ensure absolute authenticity. This uncompromising commitment alienated some casual viewers who craved fast, simple explosions of drama, but it earned the show profound, unprecedented respect from real judges and practicing litigators nationwide. It transformed a fictional network broadcast into a masterclass in modern jurisprudence, where the courtroom felt less like a Hollywood soundstage and more like a high-stakes arena of life and death. Number 4, the brutal schedule behind the weekly polish. The seamless elegance visible on screen masked an absolute logistical war zone unfolding behind the scenes. Production operated under crushing timelines, with writers rewriting dense legal dialogue late into the night as shooting schedules violently collided with broadcast deadlines. The cast and crew endured grueling 16-hour days, memorizing massive blocks of complex legal terminology while maintaining razor-sharp emotional focus. It was a high-wire act with no safety net, where exhaustion was a constant companion and burnout loomed around every corner. Yet that relentless pressure forged an unbreakable camaraderie among the entire ensemble. And every ounce of sweat translated directly into electrifying tension on screen. Number 5, the improvisational spark that redefined a character. Even with meticulously crafted scripts, the intense shooting schedule frequently left room for raw, unscripted human instinct to take over. During one of the most emotionally charged courtroom confrontations, Daniel Benzali reportedly deviated from the written text, introducing a prolonged, silent stare that completely unsettled his scene partner. The directors initially worried about the pacing, but when they saw the playback, they realized that silence carried more weight than 100 rehearsed lines. That unscripted choice became a defining signature of Ted Hoffman, proving that emotional truth often lives in the spaces between words. It transformed a standard dramatic beat into an unforgettable masterclass in screen presence. And it reminded everyone on set that true perfection is often born from pure spontaneity. Number 6, the soundtrack that elevated network television. Television scores of the late 90s often relied on predictable, soaring orchestral melodies to cue viewer emotions. Murder One broke the mold by introducing a sparse, atmospheric, and deeply modern soundscape that mirrored the suffocating claustrophobia of legal combat. The haunting compositions leaned heavily on heavy bass lines, subtle ambient tones, and rhythmic tension rather than traditional dramatic swells. This auditory choice made every legal motion feel like a high-stakes physical struggle. Viewers found themselves holding their breath long before the judge even struck the gavel. It proved once and for all that brilliant sound design could be just as compelling as the dialogue itself. Number 7, the deceptive prop that anchored the entire nightmare. Every legendary courtroom thriller relies on a piece of physical evidence that haunts the characters and mesmerizes the jury. In Murder One, that psychological anchor was not a smoking gun or a blood-stained jacket, but a deceptively simple, grainy surveillance cassette that reappeared at the most agonizingly wrong moments. The props department spent weeks meticulously engineering a tape that looked worn down, degraded, and authentically weathered by endless loops in a VCR. That single cassette became a silent, toxic character in the courtroom drama, shifting the entire balance of power with every single flickering frame. It proved that in the hands of master visual storytellers, an ordinary household object can carry the crushing weight of human destiny. And millions of viewers sat at home holding their breath as the tape rolled. Number 8, the critical backlash that punished innovation. When a television series dares to completely obliterate the established rules of its medium, the critical establishment rarely knows how to process the shock. Upon its initial broadcast, elite television reviewers were split completely down the middle, with some praising its novelistic depth, while others complained that the relentless, slow-burn pacing tested human endurance. Major mainstream publications openly questioned whether modern television audiences possessed the patience to follow a single murder trial for an entire calendar year without a neat resolution. That fierce skepticism created massive executive panic behind the scenes, triggering intense pressure on the creative team to speed up the narrative arc and wrap things up quickly. Yet, the creators stood their ground, refusing to pander to the lowest common denominator or dilute their artistic vision. History ultimately vindicated them, turning initial critical resistance into legendary status. Number 9, the mounting financial strain behind the Polish. Achieving absolute uncompromising realism on a standard network television budget extracts a brutal toll on everyone involved in the production machine. The series frequently spiraled over schedule and past its financial limits as directors fought tooth and nail to capture every micro-expression and legal technicality with cinematic brilliance. Studio accountants grew increasingly panicked as production costs ballooned week after week, pushing the financial boundaries of what a network drama was allowed to spend. That constant monetary tension created a high-pressure cooker environment behind the scenes, where every single episode felt like a desperate gamble against sudden cancellation. Yet that extreme financial risk translated directly into a level of visual and narrative quality that television had virtually never witnessed before. Uncompromising excellence, it turned out, came with an astronomical price tag. Number 10, the accidental blueprint for the streaming era. Long before binge watching became the dominant cultural habit of modern entertainment, Murder One silently laid the psychological groundwork for how future audiences would consume serialized mysteries. By demanding that viewers remember minute, complex details from weeks or months prior, it trained a generation to watch television with detective-like precision and obsession. Network executives initially feared this demanding, interconnected structure, terrified that missed episodes would permanently alienate the audience. But in doing so, they accidentally birthed the exact viewing behaviors that streaming platforms later weaponized into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Every modern prestige drama that locks viewers into a multi-episode puzzle owes an unspoken debt to this pioneering series. It was a show born a decade too early for its own immediate commercial success, but right on time to rewrite the future of the medium forever. Number 11, the network interference and content shifts that threaten the vision. As the multi-week trial marched forward and the narrative grew exponentially more dense and intricate, the executives upstairs at the network began to feel a familiar cold sweat of panic. They looked at the declining weekly ratings drop and the sprawling, maze-like plot lines that demanded total viewer attention, and they grew terrified that the average viewer was getting lost. Studio brass began stepping in with heavy-handed notes, demanding that the writers simplify the legal maneuvers, cut down on the dense procedural jargon, and inject more conventional, fast-paced action to hook a wider, mainstream audience. The creators faced a brutal, heartbreaking dilemma, caught squarely between commercial compromise and pure artistic integrity. They chose the latter, locking horns with network supervisors and fighting tooth and nail to keep the complex web of alibis, hidden motives, and psychological chess moves entirely intact. That stubborn, unyielding defense of their creative vision prevented the show from eroding into just another generic, forgettable crime procedural. And it preserved the razor-sharp intellectual tension that true television lovers had fallen deeply in love with from the first frame. Number 12, the real-life legal experts who walked the set as silent judges. Authenticity was never treated as a mere marketing buzzword by Steven Bochco and his production team. It was an absolute, uncompromised obsession that dictated every single framing choice and line of dialogue. Real-life defense attorneys, seasoned federal prosecutors, and retired appellate judges frequently visited the soundstage, sitting quietly in the shadowed corners of the gallery to observe the simulated courtroom combat. Several of these legal veterans later noted with astonishment that the simulated depositions, the rhythm of the cross-examinations, and the procedural objections were astonishingly close to the high-stakes, high-pressure trials they navigated in their own grueling careers. The actors were subjected to relentless coaching, learning how real litigators weaponize silence, shift their posture, control their breathing, and manipulate a jury without saying a single word. This high level of professional validation transformed a Hollywood soundstage into a living, breathing classroom of modern jurisprudence. Every single line delivered across that mahogany defense table carried the genuine, crushing weight of real courtroom warfare. Number 13, the future superstars hidden in plain sight across the ensemble. Looking back at the sprawling, meticulously cast ensemble today reveals a fascinating, almost surreal cinematic time capsule of extraordinary, breakout talent before the world knew their names. Long before they captured Academy Awards, Emmy Gold, and global superstardom, numerous young actors took on small, grueling guest roles in the labyrinthine plot of Murder One. These performers had to navigate complex, emotionally draining legal narratives, cutting their teeth under the intense, unforgiving pressure of a network production schedule that left zero room for error. The series served as an accidental, high-pressure incubator for some of the most respected dramatic actors of the next 2 decades, proving that the casting directors had an uncanny eye for raw, explosive talent. Watching those early, tense performances now adds an incredible layer of historical richness and unexpected depth to the viewing experience. It stands as permanent proof that true greatness was quietly brewing in every single corner of that legendary courtroom. Number 14, the Emmy record-breaking recognition that vindicated the risk. Despite the initial commercial struggles, the brutal weekly ratings anxiety, and the relentless skepticism of network accountants who predicted total disaster, the critical establishment ultimately could not ignore the sheer, breathtaking magnitude of the series. When award season finally arrived, Murder One shattered expectations by hauling in a staggering number of Primetime Emmy Award nominations, capturing the highest and most rigorous praise the television industry had to offer. Daniel Benzali and the brilliant supporting cast received widespread, thunderous acclaim for their masterclass performances, fully validating the grueling 16-hour workdays and terrifying creative risks. It was a rare, monumental moment where a deeply unconventional, risky experiment was recognized by industry peers as an absolute watershed milestone in television craftsmanship. Those historic nominations permanently cemented the show's reputation as a fearless, critical darling that had the courage to rewrite the rules of visual storytelling. The entire television landscape finally acknowledged what the most devoted fans had known since day one. Number 15, the final gavel and the eternal legacy that altered television forever. And now we reach the ultimate revelation, the final piece of the puzzle that cements Murder One not just as a brilliant television show, but as a legendary turning point in entertainment history. When the final verdict was finally delivered to the courtroom, it did not arrive with a comforting Hollywood-style neatness or a satisfying moral bow, but with the haunting, unresolved ambiguity of real life. The creators deliberately chose a conclusion that left lingering, uncomfortable questions about the nature of justice, the compromises required to survive the legal system, and the devastating personal cost of chasing absolute truth. That uncompromising, stark finale deeply shocked mainstream viewers who expected a clean, predictable moral victory, forever defining the series as a fearless, unflinching examination of human fragility. It was a breathtaking masterstroke that transformed a standard network drama into an enduring, untouchable cultural artifact. And that is precisely why, decades later, the echoes of Murder One still reverberate clearly through every great serialized story told on screen. When we look back across the decades, Murder One was never simply a television show about a high-profile trial or a clever legal puzzle. It was a bold, unapologetic declaration that television could be just as complex, layered, emotionally demanding, and intellectually rich as the greatest literature ever written. It carried the permanent fingerprints of visionary creators who dared to risk everything on a slow burn narrative, actors who delivered career-defining performances under brutal conditions, and viewers who discovered the rare, intoxicating thrill of untangling the truth piece by agonizing piece. Shows come and go. Fleeting networks fade into memory, but the blueprints that permanently change the creative landscape remain forever. Thank you for joining us on this deep, unforgettable journey through television history here at Yesterframe HQ. If this exploration of the past resonated with your own memories, hit subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and stay tuned as we open the vault to more cinematic secrets.